After 12 years of marriage, my wife finally revealed a long-held secret. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. Her midnight confession began with a hospital's question I couldn't answer. I'm Noah, 36, the dependable one everyone calls when things break or bleed. Tonight it was my mother's dizzy spell at St. Michael's, fluorescent lights buzzing like wasps above the gurney. A nurse held a clipboard and asked, "Any major hereditary conditions on your wife's side? For your children?" The word hung there like a grief I hadn't earned. We don't have children. We've tried, stopped, tried again, then pretended we'd decided to wait. I looked at Julia. She looked at the floor. The nurse moved on, but something had already shifted, like a picture tilting on a wall you've stared at for years. Back home, the house was dark except for the stove clock and the blinking router. Julia brewed tea, then didn't drink it. "Before we got married," she said, folding and unfolding a napkin, "I had a baby. 12 years of us cracked in the quiet between syllables." She spoke quickly, like outrunning consequence. Open adoption, private agency, signed agreements, a promise not to contact until invited. "I wanted to tell you," she whispered, "but I couldn't lose you too." I listened for breath and found only the hum of the fridge and a high ringing behind my eyes. "How long?" I asked. "Born in 2009, she said. "We married in 2012. I did the math like a paramedic triaging shock. Then the second incision. "I've sent money. Gifts. Sometimes tuition support. They asked for help. My name burned on the mortgage, our savings, the card I pay in full every month." "From where?" I asked, my voice too calm. She stared past me. "From us," she said, so softly the word felt imaginary. "Sometimes I signed your name because it was faster." The napkin split under her fingers. I thought of the hospital nurse and how answers are simple until they aren't. How a single unchecked box can open a life like a wound. I thought of love as shelter and realized ours had drafts I'd never felt before tonight. "I'm not a thief," she said, which is what thieves say when the motive is love. "I'm trying to be a mother, too." The kettle clicked off, unnecessary. Somewhere outside, a siren wailed. Work calling someone else to stop a different hemorrhage. I stood, the floor moving. "Show me," I said. "All of it. 12 years together is a library. Receipts, inside jokes, holiday photos, apologies that looked like flowers. Our early years were small and bright. I taught. She handled marketing for a nonprofit. We split groceries and finished each other's stories. Then there were her jokes that felt like paper cuts. "Noah is good with other people's emergencies," she'd say at dinner. "Just don't ask him to pick a paint color." Laughter, light, the kind of teasing couples use as currency. It sharpened over time. "Mr. Procedures," she called me, when I triple-checked locks or budgets. I told myself it was affection mispronounced. The fresh wound arrived 2 months ago at Emma's birthday. I'd made a slideshow of family photos. Julia took the mic and quipped, "Noah catalogs memories like evidence. Don't sneeze near his filing system." People laughed. Emma didn't. Later she handed me a plate and said, "Teasing is supposed to keep you near, not push you out." I shrugged and excused Julia. Stress at work, fundraising targets, donor drama. It's easy to forgive pattern when you call it season. Now the laptop glowed in the dark kitchen. The donations folder held subfolders by year. Inside, PDFs of wire transfers, screenshots of text requests from a number saved as PA, Lark, shipping receipts addressed to a woman I didn't know and a teenager with my eyes if you squinted wrong. A spreadsheet tracked support, books, camps, orthodontics. My breath shortened. "Did you tell them about me?" I asked. Julia wrapped her arms around herself. "They know I'm married. I didn't share your name." She didn't look sorry. She looked cornered by her own mercy. "Why forge my signature?" I asked, opening a bank PDF. A loan drawdown I'd never seen. A credit line I hadn't applied for. Opened 9 years ago. Address correct. Employer correct. Signature almost mine. "Sometimes timing mattered," she said, voice thinning. "They needed money fast. I paid it back. Mostly." The word mostly sat like a landmine. "How much?" I said. She didn't answer. The spreadsheet did. The past doesn't settle when truth moves the furniture. It rattles the pictures and rolls coins from under the couch. David came over at dawn, hair uncombed, accountant brain already awake. Emma made coffee strong enough to argue back. We spread statements across the table like maps after a storm. Start with dates, David said, then follow amounts. In 2014, a store brand card opened with my name and her email. Small purchases first, then a $1,980 cashier's checkout to Haven Services. In 2017, a personal loan at 12%, signature slanted like mine if my hand had been rushing. In 2020, a transfer titled Donation, STEM Camp, $3,200 from our emergency fund. In 2022, a payment to Lark with a heart emoji. The pattern didn't shout. It hummed, dependable as a leak. Julia stood in the doorway like a witness to her own trial. They never asked for more than I offered, she said. I offered because I couldn't sleep otherwise. I believe that part. Guilt is a poor anesthetic. But belief is not consent. Emma's thumb tapped the table. You turned Noah into an ATM you didn't have to log into. Julia flinched. I used what we had, she said. What I had before we had anything. She didn't mention the forged signature again. She didn't have to. David opened my credit reports. Here, he said softly. A retail card closed by grantor, a line of credit still open, and an inquiry last month. My stomach tightened. For what? He clicked. A pre-approval at Clear Lake Credit Union. Denied for too many recent accounts. I laughed once, the kind of sound that makes nobody safer. I didn't apply for anything, I said. Julia stared at the floor. I panicked, she whispered. I wanted to lock intuition before fall. 2 browser tabs later, David found IP logs from my email. 3 months ago, a password reset came from our home network at 1:13 a.m. I was on a night shift then, treating a man whose heart thought it was done. Tell me you asked, I said, not loudly. Julia didn't. If I told you, she said. You try to fix it the slow way, and a child can't wait for your process. The sentence carried love and a knife in the same hand. The hospital's clipboard had asked for hereditary history. My marriage had handed me a financial one I didn't recognize. I wanted the right thing to be the gentle thing. The numbers were teaching me it wouldn't be. Saturday was my father-in-law's retirement party, a suburban ballroom with too much carpet and not enough air. I told Emma I shouldn't go. She said go. Secrets grow best when nobody looks. So I went, wearing a shirt I didn't feel at home inside. Julia worked the room like it was a fundraiser. Hug here, whisper there, laughter planted exactly where cameras lived. During the toast, she lifted the mic. 12 years ago, she beamed. I married a man who organizes his socks by emotional weather. He's reliable, just not with spontaneity. Laughter rolled across the tables. But hey, someone has to alphabetize the spice rack. More laughter. My face smiled, my ribs did not. Emma's fingers pressed my sleeve. Breathe, she murmured. I stared at the chandelier until the crystals blurred and the room looked like stars underwater. When the applause died, Julia kissed my cheek for the cameras and whispered, we'll talk later. Don't make a face. We drove home without the radio. In the kitchen, she poured wine like an apology and said, too brightly, I told them we're exploring adoption in the future. It buys us cover. The word future tilted me. You told them? I asked. They asked, she said. And I wanted them to know we care. Then, softer. It's time you understood timelines. She brought out a file I had never seen. A hospital wristband, a black and white newborn photo, a photocopied open adoption agreement with names blacked out. The dates didn't sit still. The birth certificate showed late October. The agreement stamp showed mid-December. A wire transfer from my account, months before our wedding, showed January of the next year. I didn't even know you then, I said. Your name wasn't on it, she replied, as if that repaired math. I laid the photocopy beside David's spreadsheet. You said support began with tuition, I said. It began when your credit line opened. She looked past me the way people look at windows when there's no view. I made promises, she said. I kept them. Promises are furniture. They take up space long after the room changes hands. We need to talk to the agency, I said. And to a lawyer. Her mouth hardened. No lawyers, she said. We handle family as a family. I thought of forged signatures and interest rates that do not care about feelings. Then tell me everything, I said. No more edits. No more mostly. She closed her eyes. Fine, she whispered. But you won't like the next part. The house lost a degree overnight. The vents hummed. The rooms refused. Julia moved like a tenant, closing doors gently, speaking only in logistics. I'll be late. Don't wait up. There's soup. Charge the spare battery. Storm coming. The language of weather stood in for apology, and apology stood far away. Emma brought groceries and a steadiness you can lean against. You won't fix this with gentleness, she said, setting casseroles on the counter. Use gentleness on yourself. Use facts on paper. She texted David, who arrived with a portable scanner and patience I didn't deserve. We labeled folders: adoption, banking, credit, comms. We printed the open adoption agreement and circled the clause about no direct contact without mutual consent or agency facilitation. We screenshotted transfers labeled donations, highlighted the memo lines that read like lullabies and IOUs. I never consented, I said, even though the document didn't care. David pointed to the e-consent metadata on a loan statement. Home Wi-Fi, he said. The timestamp overlapped a shift where I'd been kneeling on linoleum telling a stranger he'd make it. At 2 a.m., Julia stood in the hallway outside the guest room like a photograph in low light. I'm not the villain you need, she said. I did the wrong things for the right reasons. I met her eyes. Those clauses don't cancel, I said. They collide. She stared at the baseboard, then whispered. The family called when camp was due. He needed braces. There wasn't time to argue about forms. Her voice cracked. I sent what I could. Sometimes I borrowed your name. The house groaned, old wood adjusting to a colder night. Emma pressed a mug into my hands. You can honor the child's needs without erasing your rights, she said. Boundaries aren't cruelty, they're scaffolding. David nodded. Next step, pull your full credit file, request the agency records, and call a lawyer who likes timelines more than tears. I opened my laptop and typed Harris's number with fingers that felt borrowed. The wind rose outside, a branch scraping the siding like a pen against a ledger as the printer spat another page of our rearranged life. The loan letter arrived in morning mail with the plain menace of bureaucracy. Return service requested in block letters, my name spelled right, the balance spelled worse. Past due notice on a consolidation I never signed. When I called, a polite voice confirmed what the small print already had. E-consent by a device at our address. Two-factor texted to a number ending in Julia's digits, signature matching previous accepted versions. I set the phone down like it contained weight. Julia stood by the window, arms folded. I'll fix it, she said, as if fix were a sponge. We'll shift money from savings. I shook my head. This isn't a puddle, I said. It's a leak behind the wall. David texted, check email. Found something odd. In my inbox sat an automated alert from a service I never enrolled in, an alias address forwarding to Julia's account, Nail. Accounts plus family at Gmail. The plus trick made it look like mine. The forwarding made it hers. Burner, David wrote. Used to open retail cards and route confirmations. 6 years old. I searched the alias. Pages populated. Thank you emails from the agency for generous, discreet support. Receipts from a camp vendor. A password reset from Clear Lake Credit Union. One message's subject read, our understanding about boundaries. Inside, a short note from Lark. Appreciate your help. Please keep Noah out of this. My name, in someone else's mouth, living in my own hidden inbox. My stomach went sideways. Emma's voice steadied the room. Forward copies to Harris, she said. Do not reply. Do not delete. We prove, we don't perform. That afternoon, the hospital called back asking for updated family history for my mother's chart. Any hereditary conditions from your wife's side we should record, the nurse asked again, unaware that question had detonated our week. I stared at the calendar, at our anniversary circled in a hopeful pen. We're reviewing records, I said. I'll call you tomorrow. When I hung up, Julia said quietly, if you drag this into court, I lose him. They'll cut me off. The pronoun landed like a sharp object between us. Or, I said, we stop lying and ask for a structure that doesn't steal. She closed her eyes. You don't understand adoption politics, she whispered. People don't forgive. I dialed Harris anyway, because forgiveness wasn't the form I needed signed today. Cliffhanger, Harris answered and said, bring everything. This is already a criminal matter. Harris's office smelled of paper and coffee gone cold. He listened without blinking as David and I spread the folders across his desk. Adoption forms, forged loans, Burner emails, an ecosystem of deception. He tapped a yellow legal pad with his pen, marking sections as if sorting evidence for a jury. This isn't just domestic tension, he said. It's fraud, potentially identity theft. The adoption payments complicate it further, but money leaving your account without consent is a crime. You need to protect yourself before you protect anything else. Julia sat silent at the far end of the table, arms wrapped around her ribs. You make it sound malicious, she said, voice brittle. It wasn't. It was survival. Harris glanced at her, then at me. Intent doesn't change impact, he said evenly. You borrowed someone else's legal identity to keep a promise. The law doesn't parse promises kindly. We traced transactions backward. A $1,200 wire labeled Camp 2016 routed through Clear Lake. A $5,000 cashier's check to Haven Services 3 months later. 2 donation receipts from an agency email, thanking Mr. Noah Hale for supporting transition. The metadata showed Julia's IP. Emma's pen scrawled notes, pattern, duration, motive. She was building scaffolding, Emma said quietly. Year after year, one decision covered by another. Harris nodded. That's the danger. Cover-ups breed structure. I stared at the spreadsheet and saw not just numbers, but seasons of my marriage. Summer vacations thinner than we admitted, holidays where bills arrived late, nights Julia forgot to transfer her half of rent. Each omission explained retroactively by generosity I hadn't been invited to share. David adjusted his glasses. Noah, if you'd applied for a mortgage in the last 5 years, you might have been denied. I rubbed my temples. My job depends on certifications and clean records. One forged delinquency could stain years of steady work. I'll cooperate, Julia said suddenly. I'll sit with the agency. I'll explain. Harris shook his head. Explaining isn't enough. We need documented admissions and verified statements. He folded his hands. You can try mediation, but prepare for a judge. The words filled the room like a forecast, storms coming, clear path uncertain. We were back home when her phone lit up. She grabbed it, but not before I saw the preview. Need the next payment, camp deadline. Don't let him find out. The contact name was just L. Julia's face drained, as though blood had fled to somewhere it wasn't welcome. Who is L? I asked. She pressed the phone to her chest. It's complicated. Emma stepped between us. Then uncomplicated. Julia's shoulders slumped. Lark, she said finally. The adoptive mother. She knows I've been covering extras. She threatened to block updates if I stopped. The air cracked. Threatened, I said. Julia nodded. It wasn't official. Just an understanding. Pictures, report cards, occasional calls. She said the agency doesn't need to know. But if I didn't help, she'd cut me off. David shook his head. That's extortion. Informal or not, it's leverage with money attached. I scrolled through the messages she finally showed me. Years of requests escalating from small items to larger sums, each ending with "keep this between us." My name appeared once. He doesn't know, right? Julia had replied, no, and he never will. The texts rewrote the narrative. Julia wasn't just funneling out of guilt. She was cornered by silence and dangling access to her child. Yet her response was still theft of my identity, my credit, my trust. Emma's eyes blazed. Even if she was pressured, she still forged you into it. Both of them used your name like a tool. I sat with the phone in my lap, scrolling until my vision blurred. Every request was a new cut, every reply a stitch in fabric I hadn't chosen to wear. Julia whispered. I thought if I kept the peace, one day we could meet him. I thought playing along was the only way. Playing along with lies, I said, always makes the truth harder to hold. David exhaled. This isn't just family drama anymore. This is 2 households writing checks from your life. Harris's office again, fluorescent hum and a whiteboard crowded with arrows. We pinned receipts, texts, forged loan applications. Harris drew 3 boxes: adoption agreement, unauthorized accounts, extortion messages. Here's your roadmap, he said. First, lock credit. Second, document every unauthorized payment. Third, decide how you want this to resolve: mediated settlement or full exposure. Emma leaned forward. Mediation gives her a chance to admit and set terms. Court makes it public. Harris nodded. Either way, you need to protect Noah from further damage. Freeze accounts, stop payments, No more secrets. Julia sat pale, lips pressed tight. If we go public, he'll know. He'll hate me before I ever meet him. Harris's gaze was steady. Secrets don't survive court anyway. Better you prepare than get blindsided. David slid a binder across to me. This is every financial trail I could pull. Color-coded by risk. Green, repayable. Yellow, disputed. Red, fraud-level exposure. The red tabs outnumbered the green. At home, Julia hovered at the doorway. Noah, please, she said. Mediation, not court. We can handle this privately. I turned the binder toward her. Privacy ended when you sign my name. Emma texted late. She'll try charm or threats. Don't give her either. Stick to facts. I thought about the boy, 12 now, maybe braces, maybe soccer. He hadn't chosen any of this. My heart broke for him. But heartbreak doesn't justify theft, and theft doesn't heal families. So I called Harris. Mediation first, I said, but with witnesses, and with every page ready. Good, he replied, but expect turbulence. People with secrets rarely land softly. She set the table like it was an anniversary, candles lit, plates stacked with pasta. Let's talk without lawyers, Julia said, voice velvet, but too smooth. She poured wine, slid into the seat across from me. We can fix this. No judges, no mediators. Just you and me. I glanced at Emma's text again. She'll try charm or threats. Don't give her either. I'm listening, I said carefully. Julia leaned forward. I'll close the accounts, freeze the cards. I'll repay everything. Just don't drag this to Harris. Don't humiliate us. She used the word us like a rope around my neck. You forged my name, I said. I saved my son, she corrected, eyes glassy. You think the law cares about nuance? They'll call me a criminal, not a mother. Her hand slid across the table, grazing mine. Habit almost made me take it, but I pulled back. She stiffened. Don't you remember why we lasted 12 years? She asked, voice breaking. Because I believed you'd always protect me. I stood. Belief isn't protection. It's illusion. Her face hardened. If you keep this up, I'll make sure you regret it. Maybe your board of health should hear about your stress. Maybe your supervisor should know you've been distracted. The threat coiled sharp. Emma, listening on speaker from the counter, broke in. He's not alone, Julia. You can't gaslight him this time. Julia's eyes widened at the phone. You had her listening? Yes, I said. Because truth doesn't hide in candlelight. I left the pasta untouched, the candle flames still flickering like false stars. The mediator's office had beige walls and too many tissue boxes. Harris sat beside me, binder on the table, pages clipped and tabbed. Julia entered with a lawyer I didn't know, posture stiff, face painted with serenity. The mediator, a silver-haired woman with calm eyes, opened. We're here to reach clarity and boundaries. Harris began simply. Unauthorized accounts, forged signatures, and coerced payments. Here are exhibits A through H. He slid packets across the table. Julia's lawyer barely glanced before murmuring, We dispute intent. Harris didn't flinch. Intent is irrelevant. Consent was absent. Slide after slide. Loan applications, forged e-signatures, IP logs. The text from Lark projected on the screen, each line time-stamped. Don't let him find out. Need more by Friday. Keep this between us. Julia's mask cracked. Those were private, she snapped. The mediator's voice stayed steady. Private doesn't mean lawful. Emma, invited as a neutral witness, spoke gently. He loved you, Julia. You wrote him out of his own name. For a heartbeat, Julia looked small, shoulders curling inward. Then she straightened. I did it for him, she said. For the boy. For family. I met her eyes. Family doesn't mean stealing from the one person who stayed. Harris closed the binder with a soft snap. Settlement option. Julia admits wrongdoing, ceases all payments, signs restitution agreement. Or we proceed to court. The mediator looked at Julia. Choice. Julia's jaw clenched. I need time. 2 weeks later, Harris arranged a final meeting, this time in the presence of extended family. My mother's living room became the stage, Emma and David on one side, Julia and her lawyer on the other. Harris laid the binder on the coffee table like an artifact. We've given time, Harris said calmly. Now the truth comes forward. Slide after slide glowed on the TV screen. The forged loan headers, the burner email forwarding, the wire transfers to Lark. Every page carried my name, stolen and stretched into debts. Julia tried to laugh. This is melodrama. Noah's dramatizing because he feels emasculated. He loves rules, so he calls me a criminal. Then Harris displayed the adoption agency's response to our inquiry. An official letter stating Julia had not disclosed her ongoing payments or her contact outside agency channels. Violation of the agreement. Risk of revoked access. The words thudded into the room. My mother covered her mouth. Emma whispered, "Oh God." David folded his arms. Julia's composure shattered. "If you stop me," she cried, "I'll lose him forever. You'll make me a stranger to my own blood." "You made me a stranger to my own signature," I said quietly. Her lawyer tugged her sleeve. "Enough." But Julia yanked away. "No. He needs to know. I'm not ashamed. I built a bridge where none existed. Yes, I forged, I lied, I paid. I did everything wrong for the right reason. And I'd do it again." The room rang with silence, her confession hanging heavy. Harris pressed stop on the presentation. "That," he said, "is on record. Fallout doesn't arrive in a single blow. It arrives as notifications." Harris filed affidavits, and I signed until my hand cramped. Credit freeze, fraud alerts, a sworn statement about the forged lines. He insisted we notify the adoption agency ourselves, not through rumor. Their reply was sterile and devastating. They would suspend Julia's informal updates pending a review of boundary violations. The word suspend did not say forever, but grief heard it that way. Family divided as families do. An uncle texted, "Couldn't you just work it out privately?" Emma replied before I could. Privately already failed for 12 years. David called 3 banks and 3 bureaus. His calm was a metronome I borrowed. At work, my supervisor closed the door. "You good?" he asked, the voice we use when we mean both yes and no. "I'm steady," I said, and I was. But steadiness is just breath counted against a storm. Julia moved into the guest room. We spoke in the grammar of business: deadline, statement, consent. Sometimes at night, I heard her cry. Quiet, controlled, the way she did everything. I didn't know how to hate her, which felt like another failure. Harris said, "You can hold compassion and consequences at the same time," as if my palms were wide enough. Then the legal letters multiplied. The agency requested a timeline and copies of every direct payment outside facilitation. Lark's messages, those keep this between us threads, were sober ink now. Harris reframed them as unapproved solicitation for funds affecting a third party's identity and credit. Words dry out hurt so adults can carry it. Julia's lawyer floated a proposal: restitution, written admissions, supervised contact if the agency approved. The proposal looked like a lifeboat with holes, but it was a boat. My mother, recovering well, folded my hands in hers. "Tell the truth without trying to manage the ending," she said. I wrote that on a card and taped it to the fridge. When the phone finally rang from a number I didn't recognize, I answered with the voice I use in ambulances. Low, clear, ready for whatever is next. The agency counselor sounded like someone who irons chaos for a living. "My role is structure," she said, "not sides." We met in a windowed room with a fern that looked like it had outlived 3 directors. On one screen, Julia and her lawyer. On another, Lark with a tired face and careful eyes. The counselor set the rules: no blame, speak in facts, keep the child's interests first. Lark went first. "We never meant harm," she said. "Updates were supposed to be kindness." "Cost that up?" we asked. She offered. I shouldn't have said keep him out. Her mouth trembled on him. The counselor nodded. "Words matter," she said gently. "So do channels." You stepped outside both. Julia's turn. "I thought money could buy time until courage arrived," she said. "I used Noah's name because I was ashamed. I kept thinking the next payment would be the last one." She looked older, emptied. "I'm sorry," she said, to the screen, to the fern, to the floor. My voice surprised me by being steady. "I won't block healthy contact," I said. "But there can't be any more secret debts or forged consent. If updates resume, they go through the agency. If support is needed, it's discussed, not stolen." The counselor wrote structure as care on her notepad and held it up like a banner. We agreed to steps. Julia would submit written admissions and a restitution plan supervised by counsel. Lark would cease direct requests and communicate only via agency channels. The agency would consider restoring annual updates if boundaries held for 6 months. Nobody cheered. Paperwork is not a parade. But the room breathed a little. After the call, I sat with Emma in the park, cold air turning our sentences into small clouds. Healing is ugly, she said. It's scaffolding before it's a skyline. I booked therapy. I made automatic deposits to a separate account with my name only. I unsubscribed from the reflex to apologize for asking questions. That night, I slept without waking 3 times to count costs in the dark. Morning arrived like a tolerable song. Then the counselor's email pinged with an attachment labeled Update Consideration, Child's Request. The question was small and enormous. Do you know about me, and are you angry? I answered the only way I know, direct, careful, human. Yes, I know. I am not angry with you. Adults made choices. My hope is that you grow with truth around you. The agency would hold the letter until appropriate. The act of writing it steadied me anyway. In court, ink replaced rage. Julia signed a restitution agreement and a statement admitting to unauthorized accounts and forgery. The judge ordered credit repair and mandated agency-only contact, with consequences if violated. We didn't win, we built rails. There may still be divorce papers. There may be a long, supervised bridge to something gentler. For now, I live inside boundaries with the same reverence I once gave promises. Healing looks like ordinary things. Emma laughing at my terrible omelet. David texting me balance sheet looking cleaner. My supervisor saying, take a day, and meaning it. I walk past the hospital and don't flinch at the word history. I keep a folder called Truth on my desktop, scanned letters, credit closures, the counselor's notes, my mother's sentence on a post-it. Some nights I open it just to remind myself that I am not crazy. I am careful. What I learned, if you need it said plain, consent is a full sentence. Love without boundaries becomes a siphon. Secrets don't disappear, they compound. If you're hearing a story that keeps shrinking you, measure it against receipts, not nostalgia. Ask for dates, amounts, addresses. Document before you discuss. And when you finally choose yourself, don't mistake peace for punishment. Peace is the space where you get to rebuild. I still want good things for Julia and for the boy who didn't ask for any of this. Wanting good doesn't require me to bleed for it anymore. That's the difference between love and leakage.